Welcome to A1 Storyteller, where every story is a journey into the heart of humanity. Tonight, we bring you a tale that will make you gasp, cheer, and reflect on the power of standing up for what's right. This is the story of a woman who turned the tables on injustice with nothing but her dignity, her courage, and a secret that would leave one man reeling. Officer Chad Morrison had been with the local police department for over 10 years. Over the years, he had developed a reputation, not for being a great cop, but for his bias. He had a habit of pulling over black drivers, often with no real reason. His justification? They just looked suspicious. That's exactly what happened when he saw an older black woman driving a sleek black Mercedes down Main Street. Something about the expensive car and the confident way she carried herself in the driver's seat irritated him. Without a second thought, he flicked on his lights and siren, signaling her to pull over. Inside the car, Clarice Wilson, a 72-year-old retired attorney, glanced in her rearview mirror. She let out a sigh as she pulled her vehicle to the side of the road. She had dealt with discrimination all her life, but she never let it shake her. This time would be no different. As Officer Morrison stepped out of his cruiser, he adjusted his belt and strutted over, already convinced that he had found something illegal. "License and registration," he barked, not even offering a greeting. Clarice raised an eyebrow but remained calm. "May I ask why I was stopped, officer?" "I'll be the one asking the questions," he snapped. "Hand over your license and registration." Without breaking eye contact, Clarice reached into her purse and produced her documents, handing them over with a measured calmness that Morrison mistook for fear. He barely glanced at them before asking, "Is this your vehicle?" Clarice's lips twitched into a small smile. "Yes." "Is there a reason you assume it isn't?" Morrison ignored her question and peered inside the car. "Where you headed?" "I'm on my way to meet someone important," she said cryptically. Morrison's suspicion deepened. "Step out of the vehicle." Clarice didn't argue. She knew that arguing wouldn't help when someone had already made up their mind about you. She gracefully opened the door and got out, standing tall despite her age. Morrison scrutinized her with a critical eye. "You mind if I search the vehicle?" "Yes, I do mind," Clarice said, folding her arms. "Unless you have probable cause, I believe my rights protect me from an unlawful search." Morrison's jaw clenched. He didn't like being challenged, especially not by a black woman who seemed far too confident for his liking. "You're acting awfully suspicious," he muttered. Clarice gave him a knowing look. "Or maybe you just don't like the fact that I know my rights." Morrison was about to say something when another police cruiser pulled up. A second officer stepped out. Sergeant Daniels, a senior officer with years of experience. "Everything all right here, Morrison?" Daniels asked, looking between him and Clarice. Morrison smirked. "Just questioning the driver here. Something seems off." Daniels turned to Clarice, his eyes widening slightly when he recognized her. "Name's Wilson," he said, his voice laced with respect. Clarice smiled. "Hello, Sergeant Daniels, it's been a while." Morrison frowned. "Wait, you know her?" Daniels nodded. "Know her? Officer Morrison, do you have any idea who you just pulled over?" Morrison looked between them, his confusion evident. Clarice took a step forward. "Maybe you should run my name through your system. It might save you from making a bigger fool of yourself than you already have." Daniels turned to Morrison. "Run her name. Now." Still confused but sensing something was wrong, Morrison reluctantly walked back to his cruiser. Within minutes, the color drained from his face as the information flashed across the screen. Clarice Wilson wasn't just any citizen. She was a former federal judge, a civil rights attorney, and, most importantly, the newly appointed head of the city's Police Accountability Board. Morrison's hands trembled as he realized the gravity of his mistake. He had just harassed the woman responsible for overseeing police misconduct cases. Morrison turned back to the two of them, his arrogance now replaced with sheer panic. Judge Wilson," he stammered. I I didn't realize. Clarice held up a hand. Spare me the excuses. The real question is, why did you pull me over in the first place? Morrison swallowed hard. I thought. You thought what? She interrupted. That I didn't belong in this car? That I looked suspicious? Or was it just the color of my skin? Daniels cleared his throat. Mrs. Wilson, I sincerely apologize for this incident. Clarice nodded but turned her gaze back to Morrison. You're a symptom of a much bigger problem, Officer Morrison, but unlike your past victims, I have the power to hold you accountable. Morrison opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He had spent years racially profiling black drivers, and now it was finally catching up to him. Sergeant Daniels sighed. Morrison, I need your badge and gun. What? Morrison gasped. But now? Daniels' tone was firm. Morrison's hands shook as he unhooked his badge and gun, handing them over. He had been untouchable for so long. Until now. Clarice shook her head. You could have just done your job properly. Instead, you let your prejudice guide you, and that is why your career ends here. As Morrison stood there, humiliated and defeated, Clarice got back into her car. She rolled down the window, looking at Daniels. I expect a full report on this incident, she said. You'll have it, Daniels assured her. Clarice smiled and drove away, leaving Morrison standing on the side of the road, realizing too late that his actions had cost him everything. And that, folks, is what you call instant karma. Officer Morrison thought he could get away with racial profiling until he messed with the wrong grandma. Let this be a reminder that justice always catches up and power should never be abused. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to A One Storyteller for more gripping tales that expose injustice and celebrate the triumph of truth. What do you think Morrison deserved? Let us know in the comments below.